So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Cheap Hits podcast that's been requested on the channel for literally years now. A movie that stars one of the Estevez brothers, the actress who does Lisa Simpson, the first Canadian wife, the second wife of the Orange Devil, Donald Trump, who was probably the worst individual in the history of the world, but I'm Canadian, so I'm biased. I'm not even going to recognize the job he had the last number of years because I didn't vote for him. And a good supporting cast, but where Stephen King put it all together, wrote it and directed it, it's got to be Maximum Overdrive. Now, I'm dedicating this to my sister-in-law, Jessica Lapointe, the beautiful wife of my brother. And Jessica said she was tortured when she was younger because her brothers used to put this on and make her watch it. I think it was on VHS, could have been on DVD, but it's not one of her favorite movies. So it's not dedicated to her, it's dedicated to the millions and millions of fans out there of this movie. Because not only it was a really interesting B-level plot, it was one of the best soundtracks in the 1980s because AC/DC did the majority of the songs, either repeats or new singles. And of course, the now classic "Who Made Who? Who Made You?" Who Made Who has been played, tens of millions of times. Now, Maximum Overdrive is an 86 American science fiction comedy horror film written and directed by Stephen King. Of course, the promo said, "I'm going to scare the hell out of you." The film stars Emilio Estevez, Pat Hinkle, Laura Harrington, and Yardley Smith, the voice of Lisa Simpson. Now, the screenplay was inspired by and loosely based on King's short story Trucks, which has also been adapted for a literal, presentation. Now, this was included in the author's first collection of short stories, Night Shift, and follows the events after all machines, including trucks, radios, drones, arcades, vending machines, and other paraphernalia, become sentient when New York crosses the tail of a comet, initiating a worldwide killing spree. And of course, had the very famous Green Goblin truck that has to be seen to be believed. I don't know if Marvel was paid for all the, product placement. Now, the film is King's only directorial effort, though dozens of films have been based on his novels or short stories. It contained black humor elements in a generally campy tone, which contrasts with King's somber subject matter and books. The film has a mid-1980s hard rock soundtrack, composed entirely by the group AC/DC, which at the time, and still is King's favorite band, whose album Who Made Who was released as the Maximum Overdrive soundtrack. It includes the best-selling singles Who Made Who, You Shook Me All Night Long, and Hell's Bells, and of course around the same time, the infamous Sink to Pink. Now, Maximum Overdrive was theatrically released on July 25th, 86, to generally negative reviews from critics. I saw it at the local Paramount in Calton, and the crowd I was with really enjoyed it. Not saying it was more for the soundtrack, but seeing Stephen King, AC/DC, and one of the Estevez brothers together in the same movie. And at the time, we didn't really know much about Donald Trump's second wife, Marla Maples, or Trump's rump, but she played a B-level part in the movie. It was nominated for 2 Golden Raspberry Awards, including Worst Director for King and Worst Actor for Estevez in 87, but both lost to Prince for Under Cherry Moon. In 88, the movie was nominated for Best Film at the International Fantasy Film Awards. King eventually disowned the film, describing it as a moron movie and considered the process a learning experience, after which he intended never to direct again. Now in the plot, as the Earth crosses the tail of a comet, previously inanimate machines suddenly spring to life, and an ATM insults a customer, which is King in a cameo, and a bascule bridge rises during heavy traffic, causing all vehicles upon the bridge to fall in the river or collide. Chaos sets in as machines of all kinds begin attacking humans worldwide. At the Dixie Boy truck stop just outside Wilmington, North Carolina, employee Duncan Keller is blinded after a gas dispenser sprays diesel in his eyes. An electric knife eventually injures waitress Wanda June, and arcade machines in the back room electrocute a customer. Now, cook and parole ex-convict Bill Robinson begins to suspect something is wrong. Meanwhile, at a Little League game, a vending machine kills the coach by firing canned soda point blank at him. Now, that's a really interesting scene. They killed people off in a movie through Pepsi or Coke cans at the time. 14 ounces of terror has to be seen believed. Now, a driverless road roller eventually flattens one of fleeing children, but Duncan's son Deke managed to escape on the bike. Now, newlyweds Connie and Kurt stop at a gas station where a tow truck tries to kill Kurt, but he and Connie escape in a car. Come on, Curtis! Now, Deke rides through his town as humans, even pets, are brutally killed by lawnmowers, chainsaws, electric hair dryers, pocket radios, RC cars, and get this, an ice cream truck. You know, he was Chapman to death. At the Dixie Boy, a garbage truck kills Duncan, and a truck sporting a giant Green Goblin mask on his grill runs over Bible salesman Camp Loman. Later, several big trucks encircle the truck stop. Meanwhile, Connie and Kurt are pursued by a semi-truck, but they make it crash off the side of the road as it explodes. They arrive at the truck stop and try to pass between the trucks, but their car is hit and overturns. Now, Bill and Betty Graham, a hitchhiker, rush to help them, but the trucks attack them. The owner, Bubba Henderson, uses an M72 Law rocket he had stored in a bunker hidden under the diner to destroy many of the trucks. Now, Deke makes it to a truck stop later that evening and tries to enter via the sewers, but is obstructed by the wire mesh covering the opening. That night, the survivors hear Loman screaming in the ditch, and Bill and Kurt sneak out to help by climbing through the sewers. Deke finds Loman and believes he is dead, but he suddenly jumps up and attacks Deke. Bill and Kurt eventually rescue Deke, and the truck chases them back into the pipe. The next morning, a bulldozer and a platform truck drive to the truck stop. The angered Hendershot uses the rocket launcher to blow up the bulldozer, but the platform truck fires its post-mounted machine gun into the building, killing several people, including Hendershot and Wanda. The truck then demands via sending Morse code single through his horn that Deke deciphers that the humans pump the truck's diesel for them in exchange for their lives. The survivors soon realize their own machines have enslaved them. Bill suggests they escape to a local island just off the coast, of which no motorized vehicles are permitted. While the crew is resting, Bill theorizes that the comet is actually a broom operated by interstellar aliens that are using Earth's machines to destroy humanity so the aliens can repopulate the Earth. During a fueling operation, Bill seeks a grenade onto the platform truck, destroying it, then leads the party out of the diner via a sewer hatch to the main road just as the trucks demolish the entire truck stop. The Green Goblin truck pursues the survivors to the docks, managing to kill trucker Brad when he falls behind. After Bill destroys the truck with a direct hit from a rocket shot, the survivors then sail off to safety. A title card in the epilogue explains that 2 days later, a UFO was destroyed by a Soviet weather satellite, conveniently equipped with Class 4 nuclear missiles and a laser cannon. 6 days later, Earth passes out of the comet's tail, and the survivors are still alive. Now, for at the time, it was a pretty big budget, $9 million, and all the money's on the screen. There's a lot of good special effects here, especially when you see Estevez and Hingle in Battle of Wits. Now, Martha Schumacher produced it, and for me, it should have made more money to box office. Now, according to rentals, it was $9 million budget, made about $7.4 million worldwide, but of course on video, including VHS, is done a lot better. Now, it was distributed by the De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, and again, the soundtrack made tons and tons of money. Probably one of the most important soundtracks, or what you call music from albums and CDs of the era. Now, again, Emilio Estevez, Pat Hingle, Laura Harrington, Yardley Smith, John Short as Curtis, a very underrated performance. Curtis! Ellen McDuff as Wanda June, Frankie Faison as Handy, Leon Rippey as Brad, Christopher Murray as Camp Loman, J.C. Quinn as Duncan Keller, Holter Graham as Deke Keller, Barry Bell as Steve Gayton, Patrick Miller as Joey, J. Don Ferguson as Andy, Giancarlo Esposito as the video player, Stephen King a cameo as an ATM man, and of course the second Mrs. Trump as the second woman, Mara Maples. Now, the film was the first to be made by Embassy Pictures after it was bought by Dino De Laurentiis. Principal photography began in early May 1985 in and around Wilmington, North Carolina, as De Laurentiis operated a large studio complex in the area. He chose North Carolina because it was a right-to-work state, meaning he could hire non-union crews, which would greatly cut down the production costs. Now, it would be the directorial debut of King, who had a three-picture deal with De Laurentiis. Now, in a 2002 interview with Tony Magistrate for the book Hollywood Stephen King, the first-time director stated he was coked out of his mind all through its production and really didn't know what he was doing. On-set translator Roberto Croci didn't remember King's cocaine use, but recalls him drinking from early in the morning until late at night. I didn't, but I did know that he was drunk. At 6 o'clock in the morning, we have a royal call, and he's drinking beers. And by 8:30, he's on his 10th beer. Now, in a fan screening in 2021, Jock Brandis, the film's gaffer, told the audience that King rode a motorcycle from Maine to Wilmington so he could ride alongside semi-trucks on the highway. He wanted to get a better feel for how terrifying big rigs could be when in close proximity, and a better know their loud sounds and movements. Now, when King arrived at the studio on his bike for his initial production meeting, the security guards wouldn't let him through the front gate because he did not believe he was part of any production taking place on the lot. His appearance was disheveled, and he was rambling on about a film he's directing involving killer trucks that had come alive due to a space comet. He was granted access to the studio lot after Brandis pointed out that the plates in his motorcycle were from Maine. Now, Brandis, who was Canadian, who had worked with De Laurentiis on Cronenberg's Dead Zone, was tasked with many jobs not normally given to a film gaffer. De Laurentiis erroneously believed Brandis could speak Italian and would be able to bridge the language gap between cinematography Armando Nannuzzi and the local crew. Nannuzzi had previously worked in Wilmington on Cat's Eye, a very underrated movie, which was a De Laurentiis production, and would struggle with communication throughout the film, often nodding and replying yes, yes, yes to every question. Along with being the production chief's lighting technician, Brandis procured many of the trucks used in production, most of which still feature names from actual local businesses on the cabs and trailers. Brandis is also featured in the opening scenes of the film, driving a 68 Ford F-Series dump truck over the Isabella Holmes drawbridge when it opens. Now, King originally wanted Bruce Springsteen to play the role of Bill Robinson. Now, Springsteen, get this, was unknown to De Laurentiis, so De Laurentiis personally hired Martin Sheen's son, Emilio Estevez. It is believed De Laurentiis insists that Estevez participated in the film was when Stephen King became disillusioned with the production. King did not try to create a positive environment for the crew. He did try, at one point, renting out an entire theater to screen classic films, such as Godzilla and Night of the Living Dead. He also provided free refreshments and personal commentary during each film. King would also participate in golf cart races on the studio lot during the downtime. Now, many wardrobe and special effects choices were made by De Laurentiis personally. During a daily screening of Laura Harrington's first scene, De Laurentiis became upset that she was wearing jeans. A new scene was written so she could change into something more revealing for the rest of the film. Now, the Dixie Boy truck stop set was built alongside of US 1774, just across the Cape Fear River near Wilmington. It was a purpose-built location, existing specifically for the film. The land is now a privately owned storage area. Now, all of the interior scenes were filmed at De Laurentiis' Wilmington-based studio facility, which at the time was called DEG, or De Laurentiis Entertainment Group. Now, one of the iconic Green Goblin heads for the cab of the Happy Toys truck remained on the studio lot until the mid-90s when it was sold to a private collector. Now, while shooting the scene when a lawnmower comes alive in a residential neighborhood, the cinematographer was struck in the right eye, his shooting eye, by a large splinter of wood that had become lodged in the blade. According to assistant Silvia Guglietti, we were shooting a scene where a lawnmower, the machine that cut the grass, was following a boy to kill him. And we put the camera on the ground with a piece of wood beneath to wedge, okay? I remember that Armando asked Stephen King, can we take out the blades? But Stephen King said, no, I like to see them. Armando said, well, we don't see them in a shot. But King said, no, better that you let it be seen. The special effects department had also suggested removing the blade for safety reasons, but King continued to insist that it remain so the scene could appear more lifelike. Nannuzzi was helicoptered from set and then flown to a hospital in Raleigh, where he eventually lost his eye. Production was halted for a brief period, but Nannuzzi returned to finish the film. After the movie was released, he sued King, De Laurentiis, and 16 others involved in the film for $18 million. The suit was filed in New York, as King, as many of the other defendants, often did business in that state. The case was later settled. He continued to work on films after his accident, but believed he would never again be considered for big-budget productions. Producers wouldn't want a cameraman with no depth perception. He returned to Italy, where he worked until his retirement in 1998. He died on May 14, 2001. Now, during some of the studio production work, Wilmington was grazed by Hurricane Gloria, Winds and rains were very heavy, and the crews created a competition who could move from stage to stage without being blown over. Production was eventually halted again for a brief time while the storm passed and the studio lot could be assessed for damage. Now, actor Pat Hingle, a very good character actor, who played Dixie Boy owner Barbara Hendershot, moved to Wilmington after production wrapped, and he lived in nearby Carolina Beach until his death in 2009. Now, the reception of the movie was mixed. John Perez of the New York Times wrote that by making the machine's malevolence so all-encompassing, so immoral, Mr. King loses the fillip of retribution in better horror films. For the most part, he has taken a promising notion, our dependence on our machines, and turned it into one long car crunch movie, wheezing from setups to crack-ups. Now, Variety said, master manipulator Stephen King, making his directorial debut for his own script, fails to create a convincing enough environment to make the kind of nonsense he's offering here believable or fun. Now, according to Patrick Goldstein of the LA Times, the movie never really builds up any momentum or jars us with unexpected jolts of horror. Now, Rick Hogan, the Chicago Tribune, gave the film 1 star out of 4, and he said that King's direction is heavy-handed and his dialogue hackneyed and stiff. Now, Paul Atanasio of the Washington Post said the film is like sitting alongside a 3-year-old as he skids these Tonka trucks across the living room floor and says, "Whee!" except on a somewhat grander scale, and added that as a director, Stephen King proves that he hasn't got an ounce of visual style, the vaguest idea how to direct actors, or the sense that God gave a grapefruit. Not good writing, but if you want to attack the master, he's counting his money all the way to the bank, that's all I can say. Now, on Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 15% based on 13 critic reviews, Metacritic 24%, and audience views by CinemaScore gave it film grade D+. Leonard Maltin's TV Movie Guide gets a bomb rating, and again, 2 Golden Raspberry nominations were given out, Worst Actor and Worst Director. Now, if you're watching Maximum Overdrive, you know what you're getting. It's a B movie. It's a Stephen King B movie, so if you like Stephen King style stuff, you're preaching to the choir, but if you've never seen Stephen King before or read his stuff, you wouldn't get it, will you? Now, John Clute and Peter Nichols have offered a much more modest reappraisal of Maximum Overdrive, admitting the film's many flaws, but arguing that several scenes display enough visual panache to suggest that King was not entirely without talent as a director. But you see, the Green Goblin scenes alone make for it, because that's what the Green Goblin, it's like, it's a cartoon movie with the Green Goblin as the main cartoon. You get it? That's the way it works. Now in October 2020, Stephen King's son Joe Hill expressed interest in writing and directing a Overdrive remake with some alterations to the original material, but not too much has been coming out since then. Now, if you really want to find a very interesting article on the movie, check the Variety archives from December 31st, 85, and the all-movie review by Jeremy Bidet on Maximum Overdrive. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've seen the movie. I give it 2 stars out of 4. But just like my sister-in-law Jessica, it's an acquired taste. This is a man's movie. This is no way a woman's movie. So you're losing half the gender just before you make the movie. But the commercials for the movie is saying, "I'm going to scare the hell out of you," are worth the price of admission. Because some of the trailers had that Stephen King plug before the trailer. But I first saw it, I had no idea who Yardley Smith was. This is well before Lisa Simpson. So this is kind of a prediction of the cheese of the 1990s or the sarcastic stuff. But Pat Hingle's always good in all these different kind of movies, and we had no idea that Donald Trump would be this the scourge of the world he's been for the last, since his failure as a USFL owner. By the way, if you don't like what I'm saying about Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen, I only tell you the truth, okay? His wife is 5,000 times the person he is, because at least she knows her limitations. She's not a faker or a liar. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. If you don't like it, drop me from the, leave the channel. Don't subscribe, don't listen. But this is my channel. If you don't like it, kiss my ass. Say like Eddie Murphy. I'm not going to praise a saint. Come on. Put it this way. At least with a Green Goblin, you knew he was Satan in the movie. Okay? That's the way it goes. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're doing here, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share. And we're doing a series of Stephen King podcasts. We hope you enjoyed them. But don't forget, when you mess with the master, usually what happens, you get kind of a new way to look at horror. It doesn't matter if he's a short story or long story or not. He's the master. He can take any scenario and make it his look on horror or thriller. Thanks for listening. Bye.